Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special Prog Report podcast, our very first of 2023. We're heading into our 10th year. We will be celebrating our 10th anniversary soon, so that's very exciting. And joining me here for this episode is my good friend Kyle. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going? I've got we're celebrating the end of 2022. That's very hard to show off, but I have my number 22 Memphis Grizzlies jersey on. Do you know who that is? Do you know what player that is?
No, I do not know what player that is, actually.
Sorry to trick you. It's Desmond Bain. Desmond Bain.
That was going to be my
Yeah.
guess.
If you asked me any Heat player and their number, I'd have no idea. So
it's a tough call. Yeah.
it's a fair one.
We've lost half the audience on NBA basketball right away. But
It's a sport.
yeah, Memphis Grizzlies are a team in the NBA. Anyway, thanks for everybody who has joined us over the years and helping us kick off this episode in this year. We're going to do a prog, not prog episode. This is our second one. We did it around the same time last year, and it was an excuse for us to talk about stuff that maybe isn't prog, but stuff that as prog fans we like and maybe you might like, and just sort of do some other stuff. We've always tried to inject a little bit of other things into what we do, because you know what, I grew up that way. We've talked about this. I grew up liking Def Leppard, Cheap Trick, Kiss, Queen, alongside Genesis, Yes, and Dream Theater. It made no difference to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our audience is the same. Pick a band and swap them in there. So we have our few that we listened to over last year that we didn't really get to cover. May or may not be prog-ish, prog adjacent, whatever you want to call it. Some are straight up pop rock, whatever, and we'll talk about those. Should I go ahead and get started with the first one? You want me to kick it off?
Yeah, have the honor.
Okay, so all right, so I'll kick it off with my shirt is the obvious giveaway right there. Yeah, I mean, everybody that listens to the podcast knows I'm an unabashed Def Leppard fan, going on 30 some odd years, maybe longer at this point. And they released their 12th studio album, Diamond Star Halos, back May this year, and first since 2015. That was their self-titled album. And look, what can I say? I mean, there's the fans that grew up with them in the beginning High and Dry, Pyromania era that have hated everything the band has ever done since, because they stopped sounding as heavy as that. I like the band all throughout. Some albums are hit and miss, kind of, some better than others. Obviously, the peak era, I agree. High and Dry, Pyromania, Hysteria, that is the peak era, with a few other albums in between that I do like. But I always check them out. I always see what they're up to. I was really intrigued by the singles that came out of this record, particularly the second single, which is the opening track called Take What You Want, which honestly, if anybody that's heard it or if you haven't heard it, is maybe the most High and Dry Pyromania sounding track they've done since then, which is pretty incredible. It's a really good song with a powerful riff. Joe is singing kind of close to that high register that he used to do, that he doesn't do anymore. And so that was a cool start to the album. It's a solid record. There's a lot of good songs in there. Obviously, there's a few ballads that I could live without. There's a couple of country songs that they did with Alison Krauss. They're fine.
We won't be discussing country today. Just a fair warning.
No, absolutely not.
No hip-hop,
I'm not a
no
country music fan, and
yeah,
to me, I mean, some people might listen to those songs and go, "Wow, that's such a nice step for them to do that," and it adds a lot to the record. To me, it actually takes away from the album. I uploaded this album into my iPhone like I do with every other record, and left those songs off, and it's a much more enjoyable listen for me.
Alison Krauss is like a classic rock killer. She's killed. Let's see. Was it Robert Plant?
Robert Plant, yeah. That's huge success for them.
We need to keep her away from our rock stars.
Listen, she's a great singer. She's talented. All of that. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
The other side of the record I do want to point out is there's the closing track, which is From Here to Eternity, which is a really big, epic Queen sounding song. It has actually a throwback guitar to the She's So Heavy part from I Want You by the Beatles, which you can pick out. And it's got all the harmonies. What I always found this band to be like a metal version of Queen to me. If you
Hmm.
throw in just the harmonies and the ability to write a good pop song with a heavy epic every now and then. They have tons of those on these albums where they do sort of these long epic songs with lots of guitar solos and a lot of cool stuff. And those are never released as singles. And those are always been my favorite songs. I mean, much in the same way that with Queen, I'm not the biggest fan of Another One Bites the Dust.
Hmm.
Just like with Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar Me. For me, Queen is Innuendo, Death on Two Legs, uh, you know, all those kind of songs. And same thing with Def Leppard. So that's why I
Hmm.
like to throw them in to just sort of remind people that they are worth still listening to if you gave up on them a long time ago. I'd say there's a good 6, 7 songs you'd like on this record, especially those two I mentioned. We're gonna have a Spotify playlist that we'll put the link to with 2 tracks from each of these records we're gonna talk about, so you can check those out as well. So that's my first entry, which is Def Leppard, Diamond Star Halos.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that album. It sounds great. I think Def Leppard, they're very well known for their, studio prowess, and certainly back from the days of Hysteria, I should say. It sounds just as good here. Huge sounding stuff. So, and a little bit of a spoiler alert and a foreshadow to later, I will end with another artist who's been around forever who has another great
You
album
know
this
what that
year. So
reminds
stick
one
around.
one thing that I
Oh,
I wanted to mention about this record, which is the weirdest coincidence, is that
yeah.
Steven Wilson did a surround mix of this record
Oh,
for
yeah.
Apple Music.
Yeah. So this is Prague.
So there's the prog
Yeah.
tie-in right there. So
There's our Prague tie-in. So, all
exactly.
right, yeah, no one's ever accused Def Leppard of being Prague. So,
No.
all right. So the first album I'm going to look at is, by a lot of standards, a prog band. I think I've included it here partly because we failed to talk about them on our recap of the year from a prog rock perspective, and they're also one of these bands that, I mean, to my ear, and if you didn't understand prog rock as a genre, like talk about it like as much as we do, I don't know if this would sound like progressive rock. And so genres are what they are. They're limiting in a fact in a way. So anyway, this is going to be Elder, a Nate Passage. A lot has been written about this. It only came out in November, so I think that's part of why we maybe
Yeah.
missed it. But they're a 4-piece from Massachusetts that is now based in Berlin, Germany, which is an interesting transition I'd love to learn more about. Frontman Nick DeSalvo, bassist Jack Donovan, guitarist, keyboardist Michael Riesberg, and drummer Georg Edert. Those two last definitely sound German. They've released 6 full-length albums since 2006. And Innate Passage, for what it's worth, I always like hearing from the singer, the songwriter, the creative force about what that has to do with the album. And this feels proggy, is he's referencing the passage through time and space that is common or innate to us. So that passage where we must choose a version of reality for ourselves. And so the idea from that singer
Nice
is,
and deep.
yeah, right. We have to transition. We have to grow. We have to become introspective. It's a necessary thing for us. It's innate to life. And so I think along those lines, it seems that Elder is kind of continuing to grow and evolve. Stylistically, for me, if I was going to like listen to this and say, okay, what style is this? To me, stoner rock is kind of like the label that most stands out to me, which kind of gets tossed around with like math rock, a little bit of like doom metal kind of a sound. And there's definitely like a progressive rock. People have mentioned kind of Pink Floyd kind of along with this. To me, when I hear them, especially the vocals, it reminds me of Mastodon, perhaps a little bit less heavy and a
Yeah.
little bit less busy from a drum perspective. Also like the Deftones, and then even some Opeth. And so I like it because it's a great one. Like if I'm cooking, I can kind of put it on. It's sort of the type of music that's almost like, I wouldn't say background music because there's a lot going on, but it doesn't demand like full attention. And on this album in particular, there's just 5 tracks and they're from about 8 to 14 minutes. That's definitely an aspect that feels very prog to me. And there's a lot of different twists and turns. It also reminds me of the band Explosions in the Sky, where it's like more kind of instrumental in its approach, and I guess kind of bordering on almost like cinematic, because there's so many different changes and it will dynamically build throughout the song and things like that. So for tracks, if you're out there, you're thinking, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. Um, I would say Catastasis. It's the first track. It definitely leans into kind of the mellotron, like prog keyboard, complex vocal sort of sound. You said this in the prog report, but it feels like it has like a vibe of Wish You Were Here with maybe Animals era Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
So that's a cool one. Endless Return is also great. My personal favorite though is Merged in Dreams, Ne Plus Ultra, which what a prog title. But I like it because it feels very prog and it has a definite slow build, and then the end of it is really incredible. So that's Elder Innate Passage. Give it a listen. I think you'll like it.
The first track is killer. That's the one that I've really liked.
Yeah.
I do need to give the album a little bit more listens, but yeah, it's a
I've
great one.
listened to the other stuff too. I mean, they got 6 other albums. Like, it's all good. It's like right in that kind. It's not like my go-to when I think of like music, but I've been putting it on lately and really enjoying it. So
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, so moving on. My second one. I don't know if I'm gonna get any flack for this one or not, but we'll see. It's a weird one for me to pick, but I have to be honest, and since we're doing stuff that's not prog and completely out of the norm for what we cover, um, I've just been listening to this album a lot lately, like crazy. I really dig it. It's this band called The Warning. You may or may not have heard about them. And the thing is that I started to see the name pop up on various YouTube things and online and stuff like that. And I had no idea who it was, who's in the band, what the band is, what they sound like. And then I watched this Rick Beato interview he did with this producer David Bendeth, and who ended up, I guess they're longtime friends, and it's an hour interview with him. And I'm familiar with David. I've actually met and spoken with David before years ago. He wouldn't remember this, um, but a phenomenal producer who had worked on stuff from Paramore's first record to all the Breaking Benjamin successful albums and Papa Roach and that whole kind of vibe of that kind of rock era,
yeah,
early 2000s and stuff like that. And really good producer mixer guy. And they kept talking about The Warning, so I thought, well, that all right, let's worth checking out. Let me check this out. Um, Turns out it's three girls that are sisters. I'm just going to pull up their name. It's the Villarreal Velez sisters. There's three of them. Daniela, who's the guitarist and lead singer, Paulina, who plays drums, and Alejandro, who plays bass. And it's killer stuff, man. If you like Muse mixed with the Foo Fighters, that kind of sound, very straightforward, very 3 to 5 chords on a lot of songs, very riff oriented. Um, the production is just ridiculously great. The drums sound like so massive, and she's such a good drummer. It's
yeah,
wild. And so I went back to reading about their whole story. They started playing when one of them was like 7, and
mm,
right now they are 18, 20, and 22 years old, and they just sound phenomenal. It's great power rock trio stuff, very heavy, good choruses. If you are a fan of Paramore, Papa Roach, Breaking Benjamin, Muse, again, Foo Fighters, definitely there's a heavy Muse vibe on this stuff.
So yeah, that's cool. I'll say that it feels like we're starting to have, I don't know what you call it, like a third or fourth wave of like hard rock that's being informed and influenced by YouTube, where people can seek out whatever music they want. And I'm seeing this with kids, and some of this is just fashion, but them coming in with like t-shirts of Def Leppard and Metallica and Slayer and all these bands. And more times than not, they're like, yeah, I don't know the band, but a lot of times they do. And there's kids that are like huge fans of Nirvana and Def Leppard and Motley Crue. And that's pretty wild. Like, it seems like there's been this vacuum of time where rock has just not been a thing. And I'm hopeful that the next few years bring back rock kind of to the mainstream, and then
Oh,
it'll get ruined again.
I
But,
don't think I mentioned the name of the album, which is Error,
oh,
and which came out in June. And again, there'll be a couple of tracks you can check out on our playlist that we'll put out.
well, maybe they're the new purveyors of rock. We'll see. Um, so I'm gonna follow up your definite hard rock album with another definite hard rock album. This is gonna be Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings. And so they're a rock band from not too far away from you. They're in Orlando. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
They were formed in 2004. They've got vocalist and rhythm guitarist Miles Kennedy, who you probably know. He plays with Slash and a bunch of other stuff. Lead guitarist Mark Tremonti, bassist Brian Marshall, and drummer Scott Phillips. If those last three names sound familiar to you, you might be someone around my age, about 38, because I was huge into Creed as a kid, okay? Don't throw any tomatoes at me. But those three were in
Hey, a
Creed.
lot
They
of people
founded
were.
Creed. and then they broke up in 2003. There was a year or two where they were my favorite band. So take that for what it's worth. So genre wise, again, hard rock, maybe a little bit of heavy metal, alternative metal, post grunge, but really just a hard rock band. What do they sound like? I would say they sound like kind of your AOR modern rock band. So Stone Sour, Shine Down. There's a band called Blackstone Cherry. I don't know if you know them, but they sound a lot like them. They've toured with them. And then I think from a more classical band, maybe like Soundgarden or something like that.
Oh, I'm very
Um,
familiar with Alter Bridge. I've been a
yeah,
fan for a long time. I lost track of them. I wouldn't say track. I mean, I keep up with what they're doing,
eight or
but I
nine
don't listen
years.
to them as much as
Yeah.
the second and third record. I think Blackbird and the third
Hmm.
one I liked a lot, and I was heavy into them
Yeah.
when those albums were out. So yeah, totally a fan.
So I'm not that different. Like I was into them on those first few albums because on some level it was like a continuation and I think a correction on Creed in some ways because Creed it like could kind of headed into like a little bit heavier direction. I think obviously on this side of it we know that those three members wanted to do a certain thing and maybe Scott Stapp didn't or who knows what all was involved. But they're a great like musically speaking. Tremonti he's amazing.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
So I think we're all aware of Alter Bridge. I just think it's one of those bands that I'm not going back to the Alter Bridge well all that often.
Right.
But when I did, in prep for this, I was like, man, it's a great album. They're always going to do a great album. So, and also I'm summarizing these things, not just for you, Roy, but for the listeners, I know Alter Bridge. And so for me, I would say that of the modern rock landscape, of which I'm not a fan of a lot of that, they're absolutely as good as it gets. They take this sort of traditional format of riff based heavy rock with a solid rhythm section that's not trying to do too much, but with an incredible vocalist that has good range. And then they make it a little bit more darker, a little bit more interesting. They've gotten heavier, it seems, just about with every album. And they always have a track or two that is definitely prog. And I don't know if you remember, but Miles Kennedy I had on this list last year because he has the same kind of an approach to things. And so I think it's a part of him and it's a part of Mark Tremonti that combine on this. So
Was that his
tracks wise,
solo record that he put out last year?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Unless I'm misremembering, but no, he was on my list. And had another it's a very similar album to this with some really cool stuff. If you're looking for like direct kind of like singles type songs, Silver Tongue, This Is War, that's the opener. They're both great, but my favorite tracks are two that really could be on a prog album, and that's
Yeah.
Fable of the Silent Sun, and then there's the title track Pawns and Kings. And they're two of the better songs that I've heard this year. I think if you pull those two songs out, there's even aspects of it that sounds like Dream Theater. Like it's really good stuff. So I would check this out. This is Alter Bridge, Pawns and Kings. Pawns and Kings.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to my third one, which is a band I've talked about before. I talked about them last year. One of my favorite bands for a long, long time, which is Big Wreck, band based out of Canada. Prague fans will know them as the band that opened for Dream Theater on the Falling into Infinity tour back in '97. The band did two albums back to back then, and then disbanded for about 12 years. Ian Thornley, who's the main songwriter, lead guy, went off and did a band named Thornley, and then worked with Chad Kroeger from Nickelback on some stuff, and has a decent career up in Canada. Got Big Wreck back together in 2012. Released 4 records over the years. The last one in 2019. They're all great. And then the last couple of years, they've released just a few EPs. One titled 7.1, which I think I covered last year on this same podcast, which is great. And then 7.2 came out this year. I think the plan that I've read is 7.3 is supposed to come out this year with then an actual physical compilation version of the 3 EPs, because right now they're all available just on digital. I mean, this is a band that's not proggy, but they have elements here and there on certain songs. A lot of extra instrumental sections and time signature changes, and a lot of great riffs. He's a ringer for Chris Cornell. They have a Soundgarden, Led Zeppelin kind of element to them, but they're really polished in their production and the way they combine choruses and hooks and everything together. Just a phenomenal band. Almost everything they write, I tend to like. And I think that's always been the band that when I try to show people that aren't into prog something that I think they might like, that's my go-to. So Big Wreck with 7.2.
This is your gateway drug band to Prague, you know?
Everyone I show them to ends up liking them, hearing them. It's
Yeah.
just sort of getting people to open that door, I think.
Yeah. This is my favorite one that you've picked for this list. And I know it sounds stupid, but the drum sound is unreal.
It
I mean,
really is
it's
good, yeah.
really, really big sound. I hear Zeppelin in it as much as anything, just really tight stuff. So if you like rock music at all, listen to it. This has been the biggest surprise for me of this whole process. So I've got to go listen to more Big Wreck. All right, so I'm going to shift into one that Roy doesn't like, and that's okay. But this is I saw this on a ton of lists as I was sort of like, I prepped for the Oscars by watching all the movies that are supposed to be nominated, and this podcast is kind of my opportunity to do the same with music. And I missed this one, but I really do like it. It's called Black Country New Road, Ants from Up There. I feel so silly reading these titles sometimes. It's like such a mouthful, but band we're running out of band names, so we're now Black Country, New Road. But they're an English rock band. They were formed in Cambridgeshire, of course, in 2018. Tyler Hyde. There's a lot of members. So I'm not going to list them all, but they've got vocals, bass, vocals, flute, saxophone, keys, violin, drums, guitar, just sort of a hodgepodge. Experimental rock, post punk, chamber pop, baroque pop, art rock, that kind of water they're swimming in. The obvious comparison is Arcade Fire. So if you like Arcade Fire, check this out. If you don't, definitely don't. They're also reminiscent of another prog adjacent band that probably you either love or hate, and that's Black Midi. There's my Black Midi for your bingo card, all lowercase. And then also, I think the National is another band. It's big indie rock kind of darling band. Sort of the stuff that Pitchfork likes, but low register vocals and maybe even a little bit of touch of David Bowie that I hear kind of in this band. For me, again, and Roy is dying over there because I think you aren't maybe the biggest fan of this kind of music, and that's fine. Arcade Fire was one of my favorite bands when I was in college. They're one of my favorite Austin City Limits performances, and they're a band that they actually formed in art school, so they're sort of like the archetype for this kind of music. I like this kind of art rock chamber pop approach where they take strings and horns and things that you find in kind of that classical side of music, kind of the Baroque era of that, and then they combine it with like kind of punk rock energy. And so they take interesting arrangements, always like very emotional, like vocal parts, and low register vocals, or like even almost like spoken vocals, like from the Lou Reed on kind of approach. Not my favorite thing. But there's so much going on here that I do like. I like that the energy and the effort are at a 10 out of 10. And so it's one of those bands that would be great in concert. And it's an album that from start to finish tells a story and it's very good. Some songs I don't love, some I do. My favorites are Chaos Space Marine and The Place Where He Inserted the Blade. Again, don't you love those titles? But if you like that kind of stuff, you're gonna like it. There's even stuff that sort of leans into like almost like jazz and jazz fusion at times, and so if nothing else, it'll be an interesting listen whether you like it or not. So, Black
Yeah,
Country
I
New
mean,
Road.
I don't have the correct viewpoint for this music. It's just not anything I get. It makes me crazy to listen to. It annoys me.
Did you even make it through the track?
No, and because I just know right away, I just don't like this stuff. And
Yeah,
there's that other thing where uh uh there were we had these comments on our best of podcasts and things where
yeah,
all the stuff that was on it was boring and derivative, and why aren't we covering Black Midi and Black
right,
Country and all these different bands? And again, um we're not in the business of only covering what's different. That's not,
yeah,
if that's what you think prog is, then that's missing the point just as much as us liking Dream Theater and Haken. It's no different. It doesn't have to be all one way or all the other way. We like what you know, we cover what we like is what I meant to say. And not always. I mean, we always, and like you did, you went out and said, okay, people are listening to this. Let me check it out. And we do that all the time. And
yeah.
that's how we discover bands that we may not have heard of, or bands that have been around 20 years that we didn't listen to before. So, yeah,
Well, if it makes you feel any better, this band broke up the lead singer, the creative force,
Well, that's a
quit the
shame because they're
he
getting
quit
a lot of coverage
I
on
know
this
you're
album.
you're just getting into it. I think he quit the band, like, as soon as they delivered the second album, so, I don't know, maybe there won't even be a tour, Roy, so it's take that as a little victory.
Yeah. Uh, eh,
Okay. Did you not like Arcade Fire, like, at all? Is there nothing of
yeah,
theirs you like?
no, not my
Nothing.
no, no, no,
Okay,
not
because 'cause they've
not
got
for
some
me.
great stuff, but, yeah, if you don't like them, you will not like this.
Okay, is it
Moving
my
on.
turn?
Yeah.
What is my fourth one? Because my list disappeared,
It's the mummy
from me.
heads.
Yes, okay, so okay. Well, this is not
This is a
far
good one.
from, uh, it how we went first from sort of metal,
Yep.
and rock and stuff, and now we went a little bit more alternative sounding. I think the
Mhm.
Mommy Heads is
Sorry,
in that
mommy
space.
heads.
Um, a band that I'd heard of for years and never bothered to listen to, and shame on me, because I finally did. They formed in the late '90s and
Wow.
disbanded in the early 2000s. Came back 2012, 13, something like that, and just have been relentless releasing music. They have something like 20, 30 albums or something crazy,
Whoa.
and a lot of EPs, a lot of this, the other, whatever. And they just released an album called Genius Killer earlier this year. An interesting note is that the publicist for Porcupine Tree is also the guy that was handling the publicity for the Mommy Heads. And he asked me to check it out because he thought I would like it. And he was right. And I'm glad that I had a chance to listen to it. It is a great, great record. They're really, really cool band. If you are a fan of like, well, one they get compared a lot to XTC,
Hmm.
and I'm familiar with a little bit with XTC, not too much. But if you like, Jellyfish is a prime example. The Licorice Quartet,
Yep.
which have been around recently in a few years and disbanded late last this past year. Um, if you like that kind of stuff, Jason Faulkner is another one, Pete Yorn, the hell kind of vibe. That's what these guys sound like. Um, but they throw in strings and cool arrangements and changing time signatures and sort of different styles throughout, just subtly enough to keep things interesting. The first song is absolutely something Jeff Lynne or ELO would do, and that's my favorite song on the album. It's called Impulse Item. Um, just really cool. Great alternative kind of acoustic pop stuff that is great, and I always like that kind of side of music. So glad to discover them after a bazillion years. The Mommy Heads with Genius Killer.
Yeah, sorry if I said mummy heads, but,
Yeah,
sure it's not the first
easy
time that's happened to
mistake.
them. No, I like this one too. Um, it's sorta like some music is music that you're gonna come back to a million times. Some of it's you may listen to it once and enjoy it. Same way with films, same way with types of food. You're talking about music you don't like. There's certain music like I'm 30 seconds in and I'm like, "Nope, this is not for me." For me, it's like hardcore vocals. Just there's nothing that's gonna get me to like that. So,
Yeah. Well, this
um
was a minute into this first song, and I was like, "Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna like
Oh,
this." And
yeah.
one of those right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good. When you can take sort of a pop rock song and make it more interesting, layer some vocals. I mean, that it's a great album. So, yeah, give that one a listen for sure. All right, so another one that kind of we are sort of following the same map here. It's very
yeah.
interesting. So I'm headed into my sort of singer-songwriter, like indie rock album now with Wonder Horse Cub. This will probably be like the maybe least talked about album. I found this one. It was on some lists, but I had no idea about this guy or this band or anything. And Wonder Horse, like a lot of bands these days, it's really just a band that's a solo project for a guy named Jacob Slater. And they released this album, Cub, again in October. So I didn't know this, but Jason Slater is an actor. I didn't watch this show, but he played Paul Cookie Cook, the Sex Pistols drummer, on Danny Boyle's FX miniseries Pistol.
Huh.
Uh, didn't watch it. I like Danny Boyle. Not a big Sex Pistols guy, but I'd probably watch it in another life. Maybe I'll get around to it. But so he's an actor as well. And so I think they picked him because he was in a pretty popular London based punk band called the Dead Pretties. And he sort of had like an Iggy Pop kind of reputation of being like crazy on stage. This Jacob Slater guy was really into drugs, as it would kind of fit a band like that. A lot of energy, and they broke up kind of acrimoniously. He moved away from London. He got off drugs, and then now it's 5 years later. he's matured quite a lot and has been writing songs along the way, and I guess acting as well. And so, genre wise, this is sort of a straight ahead, like alternative rock, kind of post grunge, indie rock kind of band. To me, it sounds a lot like the bands of the mid 90s, like early Radiohead, early Foo Fighters, maybe a little bit of Weezer's first couple albums. But maybe with like a little bit of flourish of like Neil Young or like Tom Petty or something like a classical like Americana singer songwriter would take. I like it because it's simple and it's direct. Um, Man, I don't know. I enjoy listening to it. It almost sounds like something that could have existed in the mid '60s, like when rock music was first coming around, and then as that kind of rock came back with like the Neil Youngs and the Tom Pettys and the post grunge, and it just feels like something that's authentic. It's not overly frilly. Songs are short, and I think it's almost like a palate cleanser for someone who listens to challenging kind of prog music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's I think that maybe that's the point of this whole podcast. It's like you can't have, filet and lobster with every meal. Like, sometimes you got to have like a quesadilla. Sometimes I have ramen noodles. I don't know. So the singles are Leader of the Pack. It's got a little bit of an Arctic Monkeys vibe. And then there's a song Teal. That's their other single. It leans into kind of that post-punk history with like kind of Lou Reed vocals. Again, not exactly my cup of tea, but my favorite song is called Atlantis. I think it's a great song. So I'd give it a listen. This is again Wonder Horse, the album Cub. Feels like someone that might have an album in a few years down the road that's really really talked about, because I think he's got some good chops. So anyway,
That's the kind of music that is it's always timely. You know, you can make this music in any decade, I
yep,
feel like.
that's what I'm
Um,
trying to say.
yeah, and it did have a Tom Petty vibe for me right away. That it, maybe not every song is like that, but the
Yep.
first song that I heard from it, I thought right away had a Tom Petty thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
three or
I
four
dug this one.
chords.
The few songs I heard, I liked it. It's one I want to listen to more. Yeah,
Cool.
good one. Okay, we're down to my last one. I think I saved maybe not. It's not maybe my favorite band of these, but I thought it's the best album of my five,
Hmm.
and um, one that really really impressed me, and I stopped listening to it after many months of listening to it, and started again recently in preparation for this, and was reminded just how great I think this album is.
Hmm.
And I don't know that you're a fan of this band, but it's Ghost, and their fifth album, Impera. Um, Man, it's such a good record. It's like it's one of the best albums of this kind of just rock, regular rock, to come out in a long time. And the everything about it is great. The production, the variety of sounds, and it is such a throwback to 80s metal to me,
Hmm.
but done so subtly in a way that new generations can listen to it. It is every bit uh, Van Halen, Motley Crue,
I don't know
Rat.
about Van Halen, but
There's a song that
Rat,
sounds like "Ain't Talking About
Scorpions.
Love." I mean, right, right,
Yeah.
right, Um,
I will let you in
but
a little secret. I don't love this band, just for what it's worth, because I'm sitting over here like feeling like the need to nod. You had one of mine you didn't like.
yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Just for me,
Yeah.
it feels like all those great bands, but just like a little bit like cheesier. And like it just there's something about it that just feels like a fake Rolex or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think some people maybe feel that. I don't know. I care so little about the
The
theatrical part
authenticity
of
of it.
it. I
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
care less about.
Which if people don't know, like the guitar players are all like soulless demons, like they have masks and
Yeah, and he's supposed to be a satanic priest and whatnot, and I
which
just
that
couldn't.
aspect for me is an enormous turn off. I hate that.
Right.
But I can listen to things on their own merit, and I like it. There's elements of it that I do like. Even their last album was probably even more talked about, and it's just like But I don't say that to take away. I'm just
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me just
keep going. Sorry.
finish up on it. So, there's stuff on there that sounds like it could be Foreigner, Blue Oyster Cult kind of, a song
Yep.
like Spillways, and then there's that song that called 20s, which is has this really cool kind of tuba driving beat going on behind it. And then the last song is sort of the prog epic, Respite in the something, I forget the name of the title. Watcher of the Skies is a downright 80s metal rocker. And what I like about that song is halfway through it goes into this whole kind of dual guitar shred thing, and that continues to build, and then they bring the chorus back on top of that, and it's such an effective way of progressing the song along, and I just thought that's great. And then there's the opening acoustic bit, which is reprised in the second half of the last song to kind of close out the album. Is the whole thing is bookended so nicely. Um, yeah, again, I get the turn off of the imagery, and I could see that for some people. I think most people sort of get that he's trying to take the piss out of that kind of stuff. Um, and he started to show his face more. So it used to be where he was wearing the mask full time, like Kiss, and I think he likes now that he's famous. um,
Well, the whole band infighting is interesting to me as the band, so he basically like kicked the whole band
he
out
kicked
and
the whole band out. Hey, he's the band. I mean, that's
yeah.
the members that used to be in it can argue that, but it seems obvious that he's the band, and it's not a band that is like my favorite band or anything like that, but um, I like them. I like them musically. I want to see them in concert. I haven't had a chance to see them. I forgot to mention that the mastermind behind is Tobias Forge. That's who we keep referring to. But if you long for the days of that kind of theatrical Alice Cooper, Motley Crue
Mhm.
sound rock,
Yep.
um, but it's just a new version of it. That's how I
Yeah.
see it. It's just the new form of that stuff. But the songs I think are just really good.
Yeah,
So
sort of like glam metal in a way. I offer the voicing of not liking it, or sorry, the perspective of not liking it, just because I feel like this is a either love them or hate them kind of band. And maybe not. There's a lot going on, and they do switch up the sound of songs from song to song. So maybe I just need to listen to it some more. I think in the same way that like I never gave a band like Slipknot their due because of all the masks and the nonsense and the guy hitting the keg and all that. uh, I think maybe there's great songs there that I've just ignored. Maybe the same with Ghost.
yeah,
So
the thing is that again, I'm not into the religious aspect of Neil Morse's music
yeah, sure,
either. Um, and again, I can put that aside. And go, this is the greatest music I've ever heard. I don't care. Let him sing about whatever he wants. It makes him happy. I like it. I like the music. I don't. I've always been able to not put that on my
sure.
opinion of the music. So maybe
Well,
that's where
it has
this works for me.
generated a lot of hype for him. So
Yeah.
um, I would argue that the Scorpions album this year is maybe better, doing like the actual band doing that style of music. But that's another
Have you heard that
conversation for another
album,
day.
the Scorpions album?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
I
don't like
never
it?
listened to that. No, I didn't. I haven't
It's
heard it at
great.
all.
It's
Oh,
great.
okay. I was never the
But
biggest Scorpions fan, but I've liked some stuff. I mean, I'll check that out.
I think they're a band where their singles are so just just I won't say cheesy, but almost like so overdone. But there's great
Yeah.
stuff on their album. So
Interesting. I
I
didn't
don't know.
take you for a
Eh,
Scorpions fan.
you know,
We found something new.
it's gonna well, I try to listen to everything, but it's gonna show up
Yeah.
in my honorable mention, so I'm jumping ahead.
Okay, okay, let's go.
Um,
Your last one.
so I can't give you a hard time about Ghost when my fifth pick is what it is. But I'm calling them like I see them. And this has been on a lot of like the top lists of the year, and I think rightfully so. This is an album I wasn't going to listen to, and then I did, and I was like, man, this is really good. So this is Ozzy Osbourne, Patient Number 9. Um, you know how old Ozzy is? He's 74.
Yeah, I was gonna say 73,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay.
I'm not going to explain who Ozzy is,
Yeah, you're
but
right.
he is the
Yeah,
undisputed
let's not go through that.
Prince of Darkness, which again, all of our albums, they kind of line up. You
It
had
really, yeah. But
Ghost.
that was actually unintentional, the order of
That
how
was
we're
so
talking about.
unintentional. But now we're talking about the old school Prince of Darkness. But anyway, so genre wise, I mean, Ozzy's, obviously known for heavy metal, kind of glam metal again, and so on. What does Ozzy sound like? I have to follow my little prompts, but Motorhead, Scorpions, Metallica,
Ozzy
Motley
sounds like
Crue.
Ozzy. That's
Ozzy sounds like
he's a
Ozzy,
he's
right?
a he's a he's a
He's kind of the
style.
paradigm creator, so it
Yeah.
feels stupid to say it. But I'll just say as a kid, an album that I really loved and listened to over and over and over was his 91 album, No More Tears.
Sure.
I love the production on it. I love the songs on it. It's classic stuff on that. This might be his best album since then. And I think this is where maybe I get frustrated, like with Ghost or like newer bands, and like even on the other side, like on the Pitchfork era, sorry, style of things, where they'll lift up albums from these like new artists because they want to like crown somebody like the new king of music. And it's like, well, this guy that's been doing it for 40, 50 years is he's doing the same thing, and he's done it before and he's doing it again. So for me, this is kind of like a fun one to end on because not something that I expected, something I would ignore just because it's just Ozzy with another album, but it's great. Listen to his guest list on this album. And usually when you have a bunch of guests, it's like, oh, this is going to suck. That's not the case. But he's got Zach Wilde, Jeff Beck, Tony Iommi, first appearance ever on a Ozzy solo album, which is cool. Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, Eric Clapton, Josh Homme, Robert Trujillo, Duff McKagan, Chad Smith, Taylor Hawkins. That's insane. And the kind of the mad scientist that brings it all together is a 32-year-old named Andrew Watt, who's multi-instrumentalist, kind of musical genius type guy, has done a lot with Eddie Vedder and even some pop acts and so on. But it almost feels like each track is like his ability to like build kind of the perfect version of a type of song that fits with the guest artists. And so the opening track, title track, Patient Number 9, it's got Jeff Beck on guitar. It's great. Degradation Rules has Tony Iommi on guitar. And then the last one, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. It's called God Only Knows. And it kind of matches the theme of the album, which is Ozzy kind of reflecting on death and looking back on his life. I mean, he's 74, for goodness sakes. And I love kind of those themes. I mean, it's, you know, it's sort of like an actor's like final film, and maybe this will be his final album. I mean, who knows? And someone that's always dealt with death and darkness in his own way, kind of reflecting on it in a poignant way is kind of nice. Obviously, it goes without saying that Taylor Hawkins, this is one of his last, recordings. He's on 3 songs on this, and it adds some emotional significance, I think, to the album as a fan of his drumming. There's a lyric from that I'm going to read. Maybe this is a nice way to end. Maybe it's too much, but someone show me mercy because I got nowhere to go. The good times always hurt me. Is it safer down below? Wonder what comes after. Will we do it again? Things that used to matter, they don't matter in the end. And it's the last song on the album, so I think it's kind of a fitting way to end this conversation, perhaps. So go listen to Ozzy. It's never bad to listen to Ozzy,
You know, I listened to Ozzy for years and years.
right?
I mean, the first solo record, Blizzard of Oz, I was listening to that when I was 7.
Killer
You
album.
know, um, great stuff. Diary of a Madman is amazing. Um, and No More Tears was definitely his comeback during that
Yeah,
period, which was just a phenomenal record. I have a bunch of the records over the years: Black Rain, Scream. I have a lot of his albums, and I generally always like his stuff. I've lost interest over the years, um, just because it's like, what more can he do? And then you stop sort of
mm,
listening. The last album, the stuff I heard single wise from, I think it's called Ordinary Man, didn't really do anything for me, and I didn't love what I heard from that record. I didn't bother to really check this one out, but I have heard good things. And then you brought it up that you might talk about it. That Patient Number 9 song is actually a really good song.
yeah.
I'll go ahead and check this one out. I'm a long time Ozzy fan. I sort of wonder how he's still able to sound this good in the studio, and how much of it is not too much studio tricks, because
I think
in
that's
person
fair.
he can't talk. So
Well, I
it's
think some of that's a put on, like his reality TV persona, like when he acts so drugged out and can't hardly talk. I think some of that's like a little bit of make believe, but
yeah,
a lot of this is, it's kind of a studio product. And I think anytime you have a producer that's that much in control, like, and some of these artists decide to do that. I mean, Aerosmith decided that 20 years ago, and so all their albums now are, they're getting songwriter help to say the least. But it works. Like, I mean, Ozzy's voice, whether it's his or it's the computers or I don't know, but it works. And I guess for me, like why it's an important one for me to end on is we are exiting the era of rock, like the sort of Mount Rushmore of rock era.
yeah,
And I'm sad about it. And so,
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I mean, part of why we listen to half the music we listen to is because of Ozzy.
yeah,
Let's be honest. I mean, that's one of the guys that invented this shit that we
yeah,
listen to. So,
right.
you know,
Yeah. It's like when I was trying to think of like bands that he sounds like, well, they all sound like him,
Exact.
So,
That's
I
exactly
mean,
right.
literally like first heavy metal band, and that's Ozzy. So,
I mean,
I
I
don't know. It makes me
remember
sad to think about these lists without some of these artists.
I remember
Uh,
listening. Crazy Train Now is like basically like the national anthem. That's how I remember listening to that when it first came out. like
sure.
like that was
I
like
don't.
5 or whatever it was. So however I don't remember what year it was, but like yeah, I mean it's legendary shit. So yeah, that's a good one. We got Def Leppard and Ozzy on the
Yeah.
bookend, and then we got the young people with the Warning. We got a little weird stuff in there with Black Country and the Mommy Heads. A little something for everybody on this
Or
collection
something
here.
for
So
nobody,
or
I mean, who
something for
knows?
nobody exactly. But it's a good way to kick off the year, and I'd like to see what comes up that's going to be like this that we can talk about next year. But
There's always good music. I mean, that's the thing. There's talented people doing creative things that it could easily go missed in a year. So I think these year-end recaps, the reason why I think people love them so much is it's a good excuse to say, "Hey, what did I miss this year?" There's a ton of stuff I missed. So I always love
yeah.
preparing for this.
If there's any others that you think we would like that we should check out, let us know in any comments, or you can email, you can message us, or a bunch of different places, all that kind of stuff. I guess coming down soon. I mean, we started doing some reaction videos end of December. We have one for Haken and one for Winery Dogs. I think we might do some of those because those seem to be doing pretty well. People seem to like them. So I think you'll see more of those pop up on our channel. And of course, there's a bunch of big releases coming soon from Riverside, from Haken. So stay up to speed on everything. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube, on our podcasts networks, and there'll be interviews and reviews and all that stuff coming down throughout the year, and a lot of great stuff for another great 2023 as we celebrate our 10th year at the Prog Report. So I guess that closes it. I got anything else?
No, I mean, I had a few honorable mentions, but I don't know if it's like so interesting. There's always more.
Yeah, there's always
Um,
more.
but I thought one that I just didn't feel like I could put it on because I don't feel like it's like what I usually listen to. But Tedeschi Trucks Band, they released like 4 separate discs
Yes,
like
I'm
throughout the
familiar
year.
with that whole thing that they did. Yeah.
I Am the Moon, and it's great. Like if you're into that kind of thing, it's really good. Scorpions, their album was they claim it's their last album. It's also very solid. The Black Keys, which is another one of those bands that was like elevated for a period of time. You may not have liked them, but they've got a great album, Dropout Boogie, that came out. Spoon, another band that kind of falls into that like, I mean, they've been around for longer, but kind of early 2000s indie rock era. They've got a great album called Lucifer on the Sofa. Yeah, there's good stuff out there. Who there's another like Elvis Costello's got a great album. I mean, there's some good stuff. It's been an interesting year of music. Again, it's a lot of the old, a lot of the new. Trying to find some stuff you like in the middle.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, I'll leave the honorable mentions with you. And all right. We'll see you, like I said, just we'll see you often this year. So thanks to everybody. Thank you, Kyle. And good night.
Yep. Or goodbye.